And we are live. All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Ben Campbell. This is Off the Cuff Live, where I answer questions from my coaching community. It's discord.gg/self-improvement. I've been a men's coach for the past 4 or 5 years now. I've been in the self-improvement industry for 14. I specialize in social matters and dating, but I can also help a little bit with productivity. Again, if you have a question or you want to call in live to the show, you can go to discord.gg/self-improvement. On the call with me, I've got my buddy Slade, who's going to be acting as producer, reading out some of the questions from our community. So let's take the first one.
All right, so the first one is, hey Ben, I suffer from approach anxiety, even in easy environments like bars, where it's socially acceptable to approach girls. What are some ways to get over this?
Ways to get over approach anxiety. Okay. Yeah, so I first want to say approach anxiety is like a common term that is used in like pickup and seduction fields, as well as I don't teach quote unquote seduction. I don't teach anything that uses formulas or pseudoscientific things. So even though we're talking about approach anxiety, quote unquote, I come at it from a very different perspective than most people in this sphere that talk about these kinds of things. But essentially, what this guy's saying is, I'm afraid to go and talk to people. I'm afraid if I see a pretty girl to go up and speak to her. And the way that you get over that is by doing things that scare you. So a lot of the techniques that I use in my coaching revolve around exposure therapy, basically. So taking the thing that you are afraid of, amplifying it, and exposing yourself to it within a safe environment. So if you're afraid of talking to girls, the best way that you can get over that is to talk to a bunch of women. But you can take things a step further and do things that are more scary to you than... So a lot of the fear comes down to you're either scared that you're going to say the wrong thing, or you're scared that you're going to do the wrong thing, or you're scared that you're not going to know what to say, or you're scared that people around you are going to be judging you, or that woman's going to be judging you. It's a fear of judgment. It's a fear of the negative opinions of other people, essentially. I've just realized that the Rumble stream is failing to connect. That, I guess, doesn't matter. I'll worry about that another time. And so if you want to go over these fears, first of all, realizing that people don't think about you nearly as much as you think they do. So even if you go up to somebody and you completely suck out and you're like, hey, I think you're really pretty, and she says no to you, the absolute, it's kind of a cliche, but the absolute worst thing that can happen is that they say no to you. And so it's sort of a combination of getting over the fear of rejection and getting over the fear of judgment. Getting over the fear of judgment through exposure. So for example, with my clients, we run a 2-day boot camp. It's a social freedom and dating boot camp. I'll take people out and I'll make them do far more embarrassing things in public than just going and saying hello to somebody or asking somebody out. And so by the time that they've done all of these things, they are no longer afraid. Like last night, Slade and I were out, and we were just shouting "woo" in the street and that's like a very simple, very easy thing to do, but there's still a little bit of fear there. And so I don't know if you want to weigh in here, but I'm sure you'll have noticed, even though we were shouting and going "woo" in the middle of the street, nobody even paid the smallest bit of attention to us. Nobody turned around, nobody looked. And so the things that we think are going to expose us to other people are often just bullshit fears inside our own head that don't matter. And so if you can get to the point where you realize that people don't care, you're no longer scared of the judgment. And there's a few things that we can do to get over that. If you want to work with me and go through a program with me where I can get you to the point where you're no longer afraid, again, it's discord.gg/self-improvement. I offer a free one-on-one consultation call to people, and there's little programs that we can go through there. The other thing is getting over the fear of rejection. And a lot of that is realizing that rejection isn't at all personal. So if somebody rejects you, especially in a dating context, a lot of people are afraid that if they go up and they express interest in somebody and they get rejected, it means that they are not good enough, or it means that they're not worthy of the other person's attention or affection or validation, which is bullshit. Really, all rejection is that person saying to you that they don't want the same things as you right now, or there's some sort of incompatibility between what you're asking and what they're just not interested. But they can't reject you on a personal level unless they know you on a personal level. So if this is just a stranger or somebody you've not known for very long, it's impossible for them to judge you on a personal level, because it's not like they're, say your name is Jim, it's not like they're going, oh Jim, I see you for all that you are in the totality of your existence and I deem you unworthy. What they're really just saying is, no, I'm not interested in that. And when you realize that dating and making friends and any social thing where you're trying to connect with other people is all about compatibility, the rejection stops mattering to you. And so it's really about building yourself to a point where you have a high sense of self-worth and a reasonable sense of confidence in yourself, realizing that rejection isn't personal, getting over the fear of judgment of other people. And when you tie all of those things together, you can then go into any social situation and do anything that you want without fear of reproach, essentially. So that's how you get over social anxiety. I hope that sort of ties together and makes sense.
Yeah, it sounded sensical. Now this one is a kind of a get to know Ben a little bit. This user asks, "What's your life been like, and what do you want it to be like?" So,
Well,
what's your life been like, and what do you want it to be like?
okay, am I just going to share my life story now, I guess?
Yeah, just a little bit, Ben.
All right, I was born on the Isle of Shetland in the middle of a storm out in the North Sea. I grew up in the Central Highlands in this little village. I was bullied. So I'll sort of explain it in a way that explains how I got to the point where I am now and why I am a coach, basically. So I was bullied throughout primary school and secondary school, and I didn't really have any friends growing up. I was a very socially awkward kid. I had a lot of anger and sort of anxiety and depression. There's some other familial stuff that I'm not going to go into right now. I had a good relationship with my parents, but there was some stuff there that had knock-on effects in that affected my relationship with them and my sort of self-perspective. So I grew up with a lot of anxiety. I grew up with a lot of negative thoughts about myself. Like when I was a teenager, I had no friends. I was very bad at communicating, very bad at explaining and like getting my thoughts out and communicating with people. And so I'd sit there and I'd look in the mirror before school every morning. I'd be like, you're a worthless piece of shit. Like nobody loves you. You know, you don't deserve anything. Like I had a lot of very negative self thoughts. And there was a moment when I was around, you know, I was suicidal for a while as well. Like not really. It never got to the point where I was really gonna do it, but I started having those thoughts of like, well, if I was gonna kill myself, how would I do it? And I started to contemplate those kinds of things. I was in a dark place in my teens, and there was a moment when I was around 14 where I was very, very stoned, sitting alone in my room, smoking out of a bong that I'd made from a what's it called? An energy drink bottle and a like a little metal socket with a pen. I was smoking weed out of this bong, and I got really stoned. And I'm sitting there, and I kept asking myself like, why is my life like this? Why do I feel so bad all the time? Like I hadn't felt happy in a couple of years. I was really lonely. I had no fucking friends. Nobody really to talk to or confide in. And I was wondering why my life was the way it was. And then I had this moment of clarity where I sort of thought to myself, well, what if I could change this? What if I could do something about this? And I developed what I would consider to be meta awareness. So like the awareness until that point in my life, I'd been entirely reactionary. I had never had the thought that I could maybe take control over any aspect of my life or the way that I thought or the way that I reacted to things. And so I was a victim of circumstance. I was just, oh, woe is me, everything's wrong with my life. Why is it the way that it is? But I never thought, what can I do about this? So it was the first time I ever had that thought, and I made a promise to myself in that moment that every day from that point forward, I would get a little bit better and I'd get a little bit happier, and I'd figure out why I feel the way that I do and what I can do about it. And so that was what started me on the like self-improvement path, the self-improvement grind. And then from that point forward, for several years, from like 14 to 17, I was just obsessively immersed in personal development. I was reading books. I was like following people on YouTube. I was like reaching out to coaches and people and asking for advice. And around 16, 17, I started to get into pickup because I was like, oh, I want to get a girlfriend. And I very quickly realized that that shit doesn't work because it's like a system of routines and bullshit. I'm actually making a video about this at the moment. It'll come out on my channel in maybe a week or two. And so yeah, 16, 17, I'm starting to feel a hell of a lot better about myself. And I've started to make some friends and stuff, and I've started to follow some of the advice. And then I befriended a couple of coaches that were in a company based in the US that were teaching sort of dating and social stuff. And I started going to seminars and like meeting up with them, and ended up befriending them. And at this point, when I was like 17, 18, 19, I was traveling around Europe, and I left home because I didn't have a very good home life at that point. I have a very great relationship with my parents now, but back then things were pretty up and down, let's say. And so I spent as much time away from home as possible. I moved out of my home into a little apartment in Dundee, this little like tiny apartment, and I saved up all my money, and I'd take my guitar and go over into Europe and hitchhike around Europe playing guitar and traveling. And so I got to see a lot of different countries when I was very young, and I got exposed to a bunch of different cultures and a bunch of different people, and I was sort of working on my social capability and learning what people are like and how to navigate these sort of situations. It was an amazing time in my life for those few years. And then I started working for that company that I befriended as a personal assistant to the top guy, and then I was a video editor, and then an assistant coach, and then I was coach for Europe for a few years, and then I split to start my own, to start this. So that's how my life has been so far. It's been interesting. It's been, I've experienced a lot of different things, and a lot of really great moments and a lot of really terrible moments. And but overall, it's been pretty fantastic, and I feel like I've learned a lot, and it's put me in a position that I'm very happy with. Like I like where I am now, and so I like everything that's happened that has brought me here. I feel like I've lived a very fortunate and unique life so far. Where do I want to go? I guess I see myself in the future. It's everything in my life has led me towards coaching. I feel I'm very good at it. My clients get great results, and so that is the only real focus for me at the moment. I want to expand my business. I want to get lots of people to come in and see what I have to offer. I want to give great advice. I want to help people. I see a real problem in the world at the moment with a lot of young men are having bad experiences with like they're having the same experiences that I did. They're lonely. They're not getting very good results in dating. And the problem that I see is a lot of them are turning to like manosphere stuff and red pill stuff, or they're becoming incels, or they're getting into pickup, and they're going down really dark paths because their mindset is inherently it's one of pain, and it's one of insecurity. And a lot of the advice that caters to young men today is predicated in that sort of sphere, like the pickup stuff. The reason people are attracted to that is because they don't believe that they're worthy of getting the things that they desire, and so they turn to an ideology that tells them that they just need to pretend to be someone else to get it, rather than actually bettering themselves. And so my goal is to do something about that, basically, and to offer an alternative that because I've seen that it doesn't have to be like that. I've seen the alternative. I've never had a single client that has gone through the program and not got great results. And between myself and the company that I used to work for, which had been going back into like the 80s, we've coached hundreds, if not thousands of people, and never had a single one not get the results that we tell them they will if they follow the advice. And so, yeah, my goal is to offer an alternative to a lot of the mainstream stuff, and a better way of doing things, basically, and to help people get the things that they desire from their social lives. Because like the tagline for my company and the thing that I have on my business cards is "You deserve a life filled with connection," and I really believe that we're social creatures at heart, and I think everybody deserves meaning and intimacy and connection in their lives. I hope
Okay,
that
so
answers the question succinctly, or
yeah.
sufficiently. Not
Next
succinctly. That
question.
wasn't succinct at all.
Well, I think you did a good job. Next question is about a man who he saw a very cute girl in a shopping mall, and he didn't approach her because he felt like it wasn't the right setting, such as a bar, and he'd
Okay.
like advice on how to approach somebody like that anyway in any situation.
Yeah. So where like people, and again, this goes back to the pickup thing. People talk about like night game and day game, and the differences between those, and I think it doesn't. the only difference between approaching someone during the day and approaching someone in a place like a bar or a club or whatever is that it's more expected in the bars and the clubs. Like what people, when they're in it's like a socially acceptable place to hit on people, and so people feel a lot more comfortable doing it in those places. But that doesn't mean that it's in any way wrong or bad to approach people in daylight. You just need to have a certain level of social calibration in order to do so. So like the only people that are approaching, let's say, so you're a guy, you want to approach women. The only people that are approaching women during the day, just like out, like you see someone out in the street and you walk up to them, the people that are doing that are either pickup guys or crazy people that don't understand that there are social boundaries there, or people like, I mean, that's 90% of it, let's say. So if you want to do this in a way that is healthy and in a way that doesn't affect people in a negative way and comes across well, you need to make it very clear to the person that you're approaching that you don't fit into either one of those categories. And you do this by being extremely upfront and honest with them and using what I call a pre-frame, or what we call a pre-frame. And it's this is also used in sales, but in this context, a pre-frame is basically you're just taking anything that might be misconstrued or taken negatively and calling it out immediately. So, for example, Slade and I were out last night, and I approached someone that was in the bar that we were at, this beautiful Asian woman. And the pre-frame that I said, the thing that I said to her, because we're in that kind of setting, is you probably get this all the time. And, you know, she's a pretty girl in a bar, so she probably does get this all the time. I said, you probably get this all the time, so feel free to tell me to go away and I will. But I just had to say, I think you're incredibly beautiful. And I had to come over and say, hello, what's your name? And it ended up going well, but 9 times out of 10, it won't. The fact that I called out the situation makes it easier for everybody, and it gives them an understanding that I'm not a crazy person, that I am somewhat socially aware enough to that she can feel safe saying no to me, and that she understands that I'm not going to do anything weird. So if you're out in public, say for the example was, you see someone at the mall, say they're shopping or whatever, you could say something like, I understand that this is a strange thing to do in a mall like this, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable. That would be your pre-frame. And then you go straight into, I think you're really attractive. I like this about you. It's usually better to compliment. If you're going to give someone a compliment, give them a genuine compliment. Don't use fucking canned lines that you use on everybody else. Or like, women are smart. They're going to pick up on this. And so it's always best to try and come up with something unique to them that they have made a deliberate choice about. So it could, or something that is unique to them that's not just like, oh, you're pretty, because they know they're pretty. So it could be like, I like the way that you walk, or the way you move, or your eyes are very beautiful. It's something that's a little bit more unique than just you're cute or you're hot or whatever. Anyway, back to the question. So pick up on the situation, understand that what you're doing is strange, and just call it out ahead of time. Another good example is, say it's someone working in like a coffee shop. If you walk in and there's a barista working at the coffee shop and there's a big line behind you, if you start hitting on her, you're dumping a whole load of implication on her lap that is not necessarily fair. So she's working, she's supposed to be nice to you. She probably doesn't want to upset a customer in front of her boss or whatever. She doesn't know, like, maybe you're a regular there. If she says no to you, is that going to cause problems? Like, a lot of guys can be really fucking weird about this, or maybe she'll get called a whore or stalked or whatever. And again, it's like she's in the middle of working, so she's probably trying to remember orders and all of this shit. So if the first thing that you say, instead of like, hey, I think you're cute, can I get your number, is, hey, I understand that you're working right now and I don't want to put pressure on you or take too much of your time. I'll make this really brief. I wonder if I can get your number and I'll text you later. And if she looks uncomfortable, it's like, it's okay to say no. Like, don't worry, I know I'm in here all the time. I don't want to make things weird for you. There's always going to be a little bit of discomfort that comes with being flirted with. That's just something that you can't really avoid. But if you put all this stuff up front, it shows that you are socially aware enough to handle the situation that you're putting both of you in, and it makes the other person a hell of a lot more comfortable. And so that's how you handle it if you're doing it in public places.
Next question is, when you do get somebody's number, how do you improve your text game with girls? What are some tips?
Yeah, I fuck it. So text game's another one of these things that I lump in with all the pickup stuff that is just, it's unnecessary bullshit that people are anytime someone is referring to game, or like the lines that they use, or text game, or like how to improve a situation to the point where they're like using to make things more favorable for themselves in the things that they say and do, it's always bullshit. The things that really determine how well an interaction goes between two people are how present you are and how like your curiosity for the other person, all these things. So when it comes to text game, I would say if the person actually likes you, there is nothing that you can do or say in a text that is going to put them off enough to end the so like text game the idea of text game comes from like I went out, I got this girl's number. I've done this with like 15 different women, and I've noticed that most of them are flaking on me, right? And so they think, oh, well, maybe I'm saying the wrong thing during my texting, and that's putting them off. Or they worry like, oh, maybe I can't say this, or maybe I can't do this. Whether it's texting or whether it's in real life, you should be as like just text them like you would anyone else. Don't worry about what you're saying or how you're saying it. Just say what you want to say. Be honest, be upfront, be genuine with people. If they get put off or they're not interested, it means that there's incompatibility there. If the compatible people, the people that are actually meant to be dating you or meant to be friends with you or whatever, it doesn't matter how you text them because they like you. They're not going to interpret things unfavorably or whatever. And this is the same as like, oh, I need to say the right thing and do the right thing. Like, no, understand that dating is a compatibility thing. It's like I text women in my life. I'm more flirty about it, obviously, but I text the women in my life just the same as I text my friends, as I text my parents, as I text anyone. It's just how I communicate. You shouldn't be catering your communication style to other people. Yeah. So short answer: text games bullshit. Don't worry about it. Just text people how you think you should, and allow them to adjust accordingly. Like even if you say the wrong thing, if the other person is reasonable, they should give you a chance to explain it. And if not, then that's just an incompatibility. Don't worry about it. It really is just about filtering for the right kind of people. And the more that you try to cater to making other people like you and to saying the right thing, the more likely you are to not actually have good friends and good relationships, because you're muddying the water and creating like a very middle of the road wishy-washy filter that is too open. Does that make sense? I'm explaining that terribly, but I think it makes sense.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, text game's nonsense. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just text people how you think you should. Everybody communicates differently, and the people that are going to be best in your life are the ones that are going to appreciate how you communicate. So like I'm very blunt and very direct with people, and some people find that insulting, or some people find that off-putting, or some people really don't like that. They don't like like I don't try to be rude, but I am just blunt and straightforward. I feel like I'm a nice person. I feel like I'm polite, but I don't try to flower up the things that I say. And so some people think that that's bad and they don't like it. Other people say, wow, I love this. I really respect the way that you talk to me. I like your communication. I had someone tell me recently that my future wife's going to be extremely lucky because I'm an amazing communicator. Whereas other people are telling me I'm an awful communicator and I should go fuck myself. So it's not what I'm doing that is right or wrong. It's the compatibility factor. It's the point that I'm trying to make here. And there are certain things that you can do to make sure that the most and this is how most like mainstream dating advice goes. There are things that you can do to make sure that the most people are okay with you, but that's not the way that you should be approaching this. Okay, because it results in like you'll just date a bunch of people, or you'll make friends with a bunch of people that aren't actually right for you because you're just trying to make people like you. Depolarizing. Right, that's all I'm gonna say on that.
You finished on that one, yeah?
Mm-hmm. I am, yes.
All right, next question is when you go to a party, or when this person goes to a party, they often feel like they're stuck in their head.
Mm.
He says, I want to talk with people, but my social anxiety is holding me back, which then gives this negative spiral in my head, which results in the feeling of very awkward during the event and defeated afterwards. What are some ways to avoid having this feeling?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So they're essentially at a party and they get really into their head, and then they go into a spiral of anxiety, and then they start feeling awkward, and then they start feeling defeated within, towards the end of the party, I guess. And they're asking of ways to avoid having this feeling as they're like out and about in a party.
Yeah, practice makes perfect. Like so everybody that is And this ties into the whole introvert extrovert thing. So people talk about being either introvert or extrovert, and I don't know if that is something that like these are definitely states that people have. People can either definitely be introverts or extroverts, but I don't think that, and I could be wrong on this, I'm not a psychologist, but I don't think these are fixed states. I think it mostly boils down to what you're used to. So it makes sense to me, as someone who is now an extrovert and used to consider myself introverted, like I get energized by social situations now, and it used to freak me out. I think what's happening is, if you are not used to being exposed to social situations, and or you have social anxiety, when you're in those situations, what's going to happen is what's happening to this guy, is that you're when you're talking to people, you're up in your head and you're thinking, what am I saying, what am I doing, how is it being perceived? And that causes a great deal of mental fatigue. Whereas if you're used to being in social situations, and you're used to like navigating those things and being a bit more in like a flow state, you're not thinking too much about what's happening. You're just enjoying the moment more, and so you find it energizing because you're not draining your own mental energy doing it. And the only real difference there is the amount of exposure that you've had. As with anything, social situations are they can be trained. It's a skill. It's something that you can learn, and you learn it through practice. So if you have social anxiety, you should be putting yourself in more situations. If you find that you're going to parties and you're up in your head and stuff, there's definitely things, depending on the severity, there's definitely things that can be worked on there with like your fear of judgment and the social anxiety and the things that we talked about earlier. But a lot of it is just exposure. Like, do it more, talk to more people, just get into more conversations and put yourself into more situations where you're uncomfortable, and you're going to over time get more comfortable with them, and then start to enjoy. Like, I used to be a terrible communicator, horrible communicator. I was very, very bad at conversing with people. I was very bad at holding a conversation and navigating social situations, and I'm very good at it now. I enjoy parties. I go out, I meet people, I bounce around between people, like getting to know and getting their stories and stuff like that. The only real difference is the level of exposure. So yeah, just do it more. Basically, I know that's a shitty answer because you want the quick fix and you don't want to feel like that anymore. But really, it is just practice makes perfect. You will get used to it, and it does get easier over time. It's like if you pick up a guitar for the first time, your fingers are gonna hurt, and you're gonna feel strained, and you're gonna make terrible noises with it. But if you pick up the guitar for 10 minutes a day every day, eventually you'll be playing beautiful melodies if you put in the work to learn and figure out how to navigate it. Yeah.
Next question is, what's the number one mistake general people make in their dating life?
I gotta think about that one for a second. Number one mistake people make in their dating life. Not trying hard enough, I think. Like, most people go, the way that most people approach dating is that they do the serial monogamy thing, where they bounce from relationship to relationship, that they're very rarely like, most relationships end in divorce, and like, most relationships end in breakups. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're taking those things very seriously and investing a lot of time and energy into them, even though they're not necessarily good, that's when it becomes a problem. So the way that people approach relationships is they're not really going for what they want, because they don't necessarily have the capability or believe that they can get what they want. So what they're doing instead is taking what they can get. And so it's like, maybe they go out to a bar or a club, or they meet someone through friends, and then they spend enough time around each other that they start to develop feelings for each other, and then suddenly they're boyfriend and girlfriend. And most of the time, it's not a compatible relationship, and it's just entirely based on feelings. And I'm not saying that feelings don't have an important role to play in relationships. Of course they do, but it's like half the picture. So if your relationship is entirely based on the way that you feel about each other, it's doomed to failure. And so people just repeat that cycle, never really learning anything, because or they stay in relationships for too long because they're afraid of being single, because they've never developed the capability to get what they want from relationships, which is why I have a job. It's what I teach, So the better way of doing it is to, when you're young, develop the skills and capability to actually get dates and meet people and make friends. And it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your interests or hobby, unless you're like a fucking serial killer, right? In which case, don't call me. I'm not going to help you. But for like 99.999% of people, even the ones that consider themselves like incels and all of this shit, you don't have enough reference experience to know what's actually out there, and I promise you it's a hell of a lot easier than you think it is. Nearly everyone in the world can get what they want from dating. They just have to try harder and know what they're doing, and a lot of that takes practice. And the main thing that prevents people is fear. It's the things that we've been talking about for the rest of the stream. It's like, oh, I'm scared of what people are going to think, or I'm scared of rejection, or I'm scared of approaching people in public, or I'm scared of making a fool of myself. I'm scared of all of these things, and I have these self-worth issues, and that this is what I teach. This is what I help people get over in my programs, is work on yourself to the point where you can develop some confidence, you can go out, you can meet people. And so when you're young, you date a bunch of people, you learn what you like, what you don't like, you develop a lot of relationship experience, and then by the time that you're ready to actually settle into something serious, you know exactly what you want and you're capable of getting it. And that, I think, is a far better way of going about relationships. And I think it's the way that people should be doing things. And in the happiest relationships that I've seen are people that have either got very, very lucky early on. Like I know couples that like they're in their 50s or 60s now, and they were high school sweethearts, and they've been together since they were 16, and they're inseparable. They got very lucky. That's not how it works for the majority of people. The majority of people need to go and find that deliberately. And the only way to do that is by knowing what you want and having the experience. So that's the mistake, I think, is people don't try hard enough. They go through life with a insecure, take what you can get kind of mindset, and it very rarely works out. And then they get to a point where they are old enough and their standards have lowered, where they just settle and end up in mediocre relationships. And I think the vast majority of people in the world are in mediocre relationships, and almost all of them could be with people that are, and this isn't like I'm not, when I say mediocre relationships, I'm not judging people based on objective qualities, but subjective. So if there's two people in a relationship, chances are there are other people that are more compatible and better for them. And there is a point where you have to sort of realize that the grass is greener where you water it. Like, it's a very dangerous mentality to always think there's someone better out there for you. There is a point where you have to settle, but people should be settling for people with higher compatibility. And also working harder to be more like to develop the skills to actually be better partners themselves. A lot of people have a lot of expectations of others when it comes to relationships, but they're not really doing much themselves to be a great partner. So those are the mistakes.
All right, this is more of a friendship question.
Okay.
And the person is asking, what is your perspective on cultivating friendships online, or the concept of having online friends? And he is particularly intrigued by the anonymity that it offers, such as not revealing where that person works or rumors that were said about them. Do you believe forming such connections hold value, or are there potential drawbacks to consider?
Okay, there's kind of two parts to my answer here, and I'm going to answer the question first, just taking it at face value, and then I'm going to interpret some of the things that he said towards the end there, and answer it in a more personal manner. Online friendships, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. Like, it's great to have online friends, and there's plenty of people that, like, I've traveled a lot in my life, and I know people in a lot of different countries that I can only keep in contact with because of the internet. And I maybe see them in person once every few years, but we talk every few days, and we keep up like a rapport. There's nothing wrong with that. I think if your relationships are primarily online, then that is that's a symptom of an underlying problem in your life, which is that you're not being social enough. Like, I do not believe for a second that you can get all of your needs met just from having online relationships. And I think part of the problem with modern society, and especially in young men, is that a lot of us are solely reliant on online relationships for some form of connection with other people. And I used to have a friend, like, during, I'm not going to name him, but during the lockdown, it's like he was living in France, and he kept complaining that he was depressed. But he's like, but I'm talking to people every day and I have my friends. It's like, yeah, but it's like you're terrified of COVID and you haven't been outside in like 2 years. I'm not surprised you're fucking, you need human contact. Like, there's a reason that the worst punishment we have for people in the prison system, even though they're surrounded by murderers and rapists and horrible people, the worst punishment that we have besides like death is locking them in solitary confinement away from other people. We cannot survive without other people. So I think if your relationships are primarily online, you don't really have lots of real life friends. That is a problem that you need to fix. And some of the things that you said there concern me, because you're saying you like the anonymity of it. You like them not knowing where you work or not knowing rumors that have been spread about you, which tells me that you are someone that isn't happy with your current life situation. You're not happy with where you work. You're not happy, like you're scared that there are things that are said about you, and that people are making fun of you or saying things behind your back. There's a lot of like fear and insecurity just in the way that you asked this question, which concerns me. And I think the solution to that is to start looking at areas of your life that you can fix. And like, why are you in this situation? What can you do to improve it over time? And also, it's like, I've worked some shit jobs in my life, but if you're working a shit job and you're going, well, this is a means to an end and I have a long-term goal and this is going to get me there, you shouldn't be feeling bad about the fact that you work a shit job. If you're working a shit job and you feel guilty and bad about that, it's evidence that you feel internally that you're not doing enough, right? Because if you were doing everything you could, and you're like, okay, I'm on my way to something better, but I just have to do this in the interim, you wouldn't feel bad about it, and you wouldn't care about the judgments of other people. If you're in a place where the judge, like, it goes back to the thing that's like, if someone makes a judgment about you or they make a statement about you, if it's not true, then it shouldn't affect you because it's not true. Who cares? It's not true. If it is true, well, then you can't get upset about it because it is true. So if you're sitting and you're thinking like, oh, I don't like the things that people are saying about me, or I'm scared of people knowing where I work or what I do, then you're ashamed of your situation. Really, it's an internal thing that you're projecting onto other people. And maybe other people are making fun, or maybe they are making judgments about you. People do that. People are cruel. But those judgments will only affect you if you yourself believe that it is wrong. So I would say that there are a lot of issues there that you need to fix. You need to work on your sense of self-worth. You need to work on what you're actually doing with your life and the path that you're on, because you're clearly not happy with it. And if you were, it also makes it easier to then go and make friends with people, because you feel like you are someone that is worthy of other people's friendship, right? Like it seems to me like you prefer the anonymity of online friendships because you can pretend to be someone that you're not, rather than being someone, you know? And I hope that doesn't come across as insulting to the person that asked this question. I empathize, and I've been there. I've been in situations in my life where I hated myself and I was unhappy with my situation. I didn't want other people to know about it because I felt ashamed. There is a path out of that, and I hope that you reach it.
Yeah. The next question is in a similar realm. This person is saying that they don't feel like they deserve to have a girlfriend that looks great and has an amazing personality, and he's asking, what could I do to increase the feeling of having more self-worth so I do feel like I deserve a beautiful girl with a great personality?
Yeah. So the things that you are focusing on are generally the masculine ideals, or things that we look for in women, and a lot of that comes down to beauty. You're like, I want someone first and foremost that's very attractive, but also has a great personality. Is the way that you worded that. Don't assume just because you think like that women think like that back. There are certainly women that care about how guys look, but generally speaking, the other way around, the feminine mindset is they care more about who you are than how you appear. They care far more about what's going on internally and how you can make them feel, and your presence around people, and your capability than they do about how you look. So if you're someone that's like, oh, I don't look very good, like, yeah, work out, work on your appearance, but don't think that is a limiting factor, because most of the time it's nothing more than a foot in the door. I've had clients who are, sorry to these guys, but objectively very ugly, that have had great success with women because they're like charming people, right? And so the way that you work on that, and you're talking about raising your sense of self-worth. I consider self-worth to be something that is like a platform. The imagery that I use is self-worth is like it's a state, it's a platform that either raises or lowers with you on top of it, and is held up by pillars. Your self-worth can be entirely dependent on one pillar, or it can be dependent on a bunch of different things. And it's far more stable and it's far more consistent if it's built on a bunch of different things. So say your self-worth is entirely based on the amount of money you earn and you have a high-paying job. If you lose that job, you're fucked, because your sense of self-worth completely diminishes. So it should be based on like your level of like discipline and the things that you do, and your value to society, right? That's one thing. And in your own like internal perception of yourself and your social capability. And there's a bunch of different areas of your life that you can address in order to feel good about yourself. And the way that you do it is basically just to do things that give you feedback that make you feel valuable. So this could be making a bunch of friends and getting a bunch of cute women in your life so that you feel like you are desirable, first of all. And then maybe you like go and volunteer at the weekends, or you take a job that you feel is valuable to other people, so now you feel like you're contributing to society, and that also makes you feel valuable. And then take up some form of discipline. So maybe you wake up at some time in the morning, you take a cold shower, and you go to the gym, and you do that every morning, and then your physical appearance increases. You're like, your physical sense of self-worth goes up, but also you become a man of your word, and you start like telling the truth. And going back to the discipline thing, you then feel like that's another area of your life that gives you self-worth, because you're someone that does what you say you're going to do, and you have discipline, and you're honest with people. So these are all things that just start acting in a way and doing things that you can feel proud of yourself for, that give you feedback that you are worth something, right? And that'll give you that's like self-worth is your self-estimation of your worth. No one else can give it to you. It's entirely dependent on yourself. So if your sense of self-worth is low, it's either because you're not doing anything that gives you a sense of self-worth, or you have a negative internal, like a negative, what's the word, that like a negative internal dialogue. The things that you say to yourself are negative. Maybe it's both, maybe it's one or the other, but these are the things that you need to fix. And then from that point, that like the term deservedness, it's like, am I worthy of this person? Do I deserve this person? Deservedness really comes down to like anything you get in life, you deserve because you got it, right? It's completely arbitrary. It's not predetermined. Whatever you get, you deserve. And so. And you know, you can say like, oh, I didn't deserve to get hit by that car or whatever. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the term deserving is completely arbitrary. We made it up. It doesn't really mean anything beyond the meaning that we give it, as with most things. So it's you're like, oh, I don't feel like I'm worthy of having a good girlfriend. It's like, so start like, what separates you from other people? What do you have that no one else is offering? And if you can't say that there is anything, then yeah, maybe you don't deserve it. Maybe you should figure that out first. So do start building start like building discipline and doing things that bring you a sense of self-worth. Realize that the things that women find attractive aren't necessarily about the way that you look and your appearance, but more about the way that you feel and the things you do. So one of the main things is I said this in an earlier live stream. I think the term that I used was power, but I'd like to reframe that now, because I think that's the wrong word. I think what women find attractive in men, it's not power necessarily, but it's capability. So if you are socially capable, or physically capable, or emotionally capable, or like financially capable, if you have a lot of resources, it doesn't really matter. If you have capability in any area, it's going to make you attractive to women, because they want capable men. Like the stereotypical gender role for men is that we have some sort of strength and capability. We protect and we provide, right? And you can say anything you want about like the modern day and different archetypes and like people becoming more masculinized or whatever. It doesn't really matter. What it boils down to is that the majority of, and there are masculine women that prefer feminine men and stuff, but the majority of feminine women, if that's what you're looking for, want someone who is capable. So figure out what areas of your life you can develop capability in and do that. And just become, and that'll increase your sense of self-worth. It'll make you feel deserving, and it'll make you more attractive to other people. And if that seems difficult, it is to an extent. It is a little bit difficult. Honestly, the easiest thing to build is probably social capability, and it's the thing that I teach. It's get to a point where you feel a little bit better about yourself, and you're not afraid of the judgment of other people. You become comfortable in your internal state, no matter who you are, and you go out and you start meeting people, and you become like a good social navigator. Once you develop that kind of social capability, you can start making lots of friends and building a network and connecting with people. That's very attractive. You're someone that knows people. You're someone that's magnetic socially. I've been in situations where I've had no money, like nothing to show for in my life apart from social capability, and I've done great with women just because I'm socially capable. And I'm not lying to them. I'm not tricking them. I lived in a fucking tent at one point, and I had a girlfriend, and it was because I had social capability. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Next up is a question about your clients. So he says that you mainly teach male clients. but are there any different approaches you would do or make for female clients? And which ones are they? Like, what kind of other approaches
Yeah.
do you take with them?
I mean, it's a reasonable question. I think I answered this in the first stream as well, but I think I can probably give a slightly better, more succinct answer now. I do call myself a men's coach, and most of my clients are men. I'll never turn down a female client. It's just that I come from a male perspective, and it's easier for me to cater to male clients. And it's also because I think it's more of a masculine thing to be the initiator in relationships and friendships, and to so it's I think guys have more of a like internal imperative to go out and seek dates and like we're the ones that approach generally. It doesn't have to be like that, but it generally is like that. So it's generally guys that seek social advice and seek dating advice, which is why I'm a men's coach. But really fundamentally it makes no difference. The like if you're a woman and you want to start approaching people and going say hi, it might even be easier for you, I don't know. But all of the advice is exactly the same, like whether you're male or female, or whether you're looking for dates or looking for friends, the process is exactly the same. It's the process of building human connection. It's the process of finding compatible people, and no matter what you're looking for, if you can figure that out, the process is exactly the same. So no, the advice for women isn't different. It's identical. But a lot of the time, and this reflects in like the articles that I post in the server and stuff like that, I do come at it from a male perspective, and I tend to talk about, well, this is how men think and this is how women think. But so a lot of the like what's the word? A lot of the nuance is focused on men in the advice that I give, but the broad strokes, like the main points, are identical. They can be translated either way. You can just ignore the stuff that's like, well, this is how this person thinks, because all of the broad strokes are the same. Yeah.
I think we might have answered this question last time.
Well, okay.
I'm not sure. But this person asks, what are some ways I can generate more gratitude into my daily life?
Mm.
And there's a second question to it. What are the top 3 mistakes you see people make? Oh no, we already asked this question actually.
In dating, yeah, we answered that one. Gratitude. Yeah, I think gratitude is really like a lot of people aren't very happy, but like there's a thing, it's called hedonic adaptation. Basically, no matter where you are in life, it is your baseline, and you will get used to it before long. And so like there's some part of us as humans that always feels a sense of lack and feels like we could have more. And I think that's unavoidable. I think that's also important, because if we didn't have that, we'd still be living in caves. Like we'd never want for anything. We need to have an innate sense that we could have more in order to make progress. So I think that's normal and it's healthy. But it can cause problems for people, because if you always want more than what you have, it's very difficult to be satisfied, and it's very difficult to be content in your life, and that can lead people to misery. And it's like I saw a study once where they did a sort of survey of Olympic gold medalists after they won, and a lot of them became depressed, because it's like they've been working towards this thing for years, and then they finally achieve it, and they're like, oh fuck, now what? So I think it's very important to have goals in your life, and it's very important to have things that you're working toward, but to realize as well that nothing external will ever fulfill you. If you put conditions on your happiness and your satisfaction, and you say, I'll be happy if, or I'll be happy when, or I'll be complete at X, Y point, you're never going to be happy, because the only thing that exists is right now. And it's great to have goals, and it's great to have things to work towards, but to recognize that those things aren't going to truly fulfill you. They can improve your quality of life, but you will always get, like, the way that you feel right now is the way that you are going to feel forever. So change the way that you feel right now. Don't worry about conditions for the future. And this will also help you achieve your goals, because you'll be in a better state to do so. And so part of that process is to cultivate a sense of gratitude for what you have, and to look around yourself and go, things are great. And you can do this by either measuring yourself to your past, if your past was worse than your present, or just to say, like, to recognize that the chances of you even being alive right now are so infinitesimally small. Like you know, it was one in however many billion fucking sperm had to be the perfect one that won the race to create you, not just in your parents, but in your parents' parents and their parents' parents, and fucking, like, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 generations back, however long it's been, right? All of your grandparents had to meet perfectly, and the sperm and the egg had to be perfect to create you. The chances of that happening are so ridiculously small that you shouldn't exist. You shouldn't exist, and yet you do. And so if you don't, if you're not, if that doesn't make you feel so fucking fortunate just to be here, then you need to reconsider how you view reality. And just beyond that, it's like if you were lucky enough to be born in the Western world, like in any European country or North American country, for example, like you are in the 1% already. You're in the 1% of the richest people on earth. You have clean, hot running water that just comes out of the fucking tap and hits you in the face. You can go and get a drink and buy some food. You can go to the supermarket and get a piece of meat that somebody else hunted for you, right? And then take it home and push a button and fire appears that you can cook on. Like you live better than kings did 400 or 500 years ago. And so if you're not grateful for that, what the fuck are you like? Then you'll never be happy. Like you need to recognize that the things that you have in your life, even just from like most people that are going to end up watching this, you are so fucking fortunate. You are so unbelievably fortunate that it's ridiculous to think anything else. And so if you can cultivate that sort of mindset, you're going to be so much more content in your life because you recognize, wow, I have it good. You know, I have it so good, and it really does take reminding yourself of that to keep up that state. Because as I say, it's hedonic adaptation. You get used to anything that, like, people are like, oh, rich people are assholes, right? And the way that I look at that, it's like if you're someone that was born with a silver spoon in your mouth and your entire life has been perfect and all of your problems are very small and you've never really had anything massive to deal with, something as small as, oh, my steak is undercooked at this restaurant is going to piss you off because it drops you below baseline, right? Because your baseline is so fucking high. So another way to maintain gratitude and to feel good about your life and to go through life really appreciating things is to try and keep your baseline for what is good as low as possible. Like, have good things. If you can live in luxury, like, great, whatever. But all, you know, share that around, give it to other people. Don't be selfish. But yeah, try and keep your baseline as low as possible and keep your expectations low and recognize as long as you have a roof over your head and food in your belly, you should be completely content. Like there's nothing wrong. Everything's fantastic. And all of the other problems sort of dwarf in comparison. And like there's always ways to fix things. There's always paths forward. Yeah. That's my approach to gratitude. I just try to remind myself how lucky I am, even when there are problems going on in my life.
This is kind of the last question, honestly, because we've kind of answered all of the other ones.
That's good. Well, we're 10 minutes from closing anyway, so we could do one more and then wrap up.
I'm sure you can stretch this one too. As a complete beginner and a guy who's always been quite shy, where can this person start to better themselves? And it's an open question, he says. I don't know what that means, but that's the question.
So shy, complete beginner, where can I start to better myself? It depends on in what context you mean better yourself. But if you're talking socially, you've come to the right place. Like this is my job. This is my speciality. Join the server. Reach out. Take a free call from me. We'll discuss your needs. We'll discuss what you want to achieve, and we'll build a plan to get you there. I can guarantee results. I can get you friends. I can get you girlfriends. I can improve your social situation. I can improve your sense of self-worth. I can get you to the point where you have the things that you want in life. I can't make you rich. I can't make you famous. I can't do any of these things, but I can guarantee you social success. So if you're someone that is shy, let's get you over being shy. If you're someone that wants friends, let's get you friends. If you're someone that wants to start dating, let's get you dates. It's a lot easier than you think. The main barrier is fear, and my speciality is helping you improve and get over fear. So that would be my advice. And it's all of the things that we've talked about for the rest of the stream. Like build your sense of self-worth, realize the dating and friendships are about compatibility, and go out and start meeting people. And I can teach you how to do that in a healthy, honest, upfront, authentic way. And anybody else that is watching this, if that interests you, discord.gg/self-improvement. There is a link in the description below. If you go there, you can read some of the free posts. You can sign up for a membership. You can join an hour after this live stream ends. So this ends at 6 p.m. Sofia time. At 7 p.m. Sofia time every Sunday, there is a weekly group coaching call where people come in. You can get a progress set. We'll track your progress. I create a tailored sort of what's the word that I'm looking for? A tailored path for you to reach your goals. I'll hear out your individual goals, and if I'm capable of helping with them, we'll get you there, and we'll create a timeline to get you there. It's a hell of a lot easier than you think. You just need to have a bit of faith and take the right steps. Yeah.
Well, all right. That's all the questions we got.
Fantastic. All right, that's the last question. Thank you very much for your questions. If anybody has any further questions, again, discord.gg/self-improvement. We go live at the same time every Sunday. You can submit your questions in there. You can also call into the show. We'll take people live on to call. Yeah, I think that's it.